Welcome to Sports Talk Line's another edition of Sports Talk Line version of The Last Dance. I almost said Save the Last Dance. That's a different movie we're talking about right now. Here we are. We got a lot to uncover right here. I'm the man with no remorse, your host for this evening. Joining me, I have Joshua Griffith from the mean streets of Vancouver. Welcome to the show, Joshua.
Vancouver Island, actually, but thank you for having me.
Yeah.
But frequent those mean streets of Vancouver often.
Absolutely. And next we have Tom McAllister. Tom, what's going on, my man?
Thanks for having me, Nate.
Absolutely. Well, let's jump right into this thing. What everyone seems to be talking about is, first and foremost, since it aired early on in the episode, Kobe Bryant. You could automatically see there was just shared respect that they had between each other. You heard Jordan talk about, even in the locker room, about how Kobe was going to try to take these all-stars on one-on-one. I know you got something to say about this, Joshua. Why don't you weigh in on this?
Yeah, so being up in Canada here, I didn't get to enjoy it till today. I mean, it came out last night, 3 p.m. Eastern time on Netflix, but I was, long in bed. So I actually just finished watching it before we started this. And, man, some of the Kobe stuff, like I forgot how good he was just when he first started coming in and how big of a superstar that he already was labeled as. It was just fascinating watching like the one-on-one stuff between the two of them. He's like, no, I got him in all the all-star game stuff. Just like, no, I got all game. I got Kobe one-on-one. Yeah, it was fantastic. I know, Tom, I was kind of messaging you last night while you were watching it. What did you think about it?
I thought it was something where it was, I'm a little bit biased, but where did that all-star game occur? Madison Square Garden, where everyone's play gets elevated. And it's not just because the Knicks are that bad right now. So it is a poignant moment where it's almost like, a lot of people try to compare Michael Jordan to LeBron. But when you look at the player Jordan was, the closest thing to it is Kobe Bryant, just the position, the moves, and how much, he gives credit to Jordan, where he said in the documentary that, if it wasn't for Michael Jordan, I wouldn't have those 5 rings. And it talks about how Kobe was a student of the game and how much knowledge, how like Jordan was like passing on his knowledge while other people kind of would keep some things secret. Nate, how do you feel about Michael Jordan passing on his knowledge to someone like Kobe Bryant?
Yeah, what I found poignant as well is the fact that I get the impression that Michael Jordan just wouldn't hand out advice to just anybody. But I think he recognized that not only do they have this similar style of play, but they have similar personalities. So I think that's what endeared Jordan to Kobe. He said, hey, you saw him talking to Reggie Miller. This guy's going to go ahead and take it. This guy is not going to be given anything. And then I think Jordan looked at that and said, hey, alpha to alpha, this is how you get things done. But
that was really, really cool. Just the two interactions.
Yeah, and then it's so funny. I think you were bringing up, Tom, before in the green room that we were talking about. Geez, just the amount of people that were interviewed in this documentary. How many of them have passed? I mean, it's almost a curse. I mean, Jerry Krause is dead. David Stern is dead. You were saying, and now Kobe is dead. Wow.
Yeah, and it's something too. I think the producers probably did justice by keeping those pieces in, kind of like as a testament, because it helped. It shows the development of the relationship. Like the first time they met in the All-Star game to where their friendship pretty much went almost 20 years later, how Kobe went from what like that from what almost you could say a lot of people thought at the time in the 1998 All-Star game, Kobe was like, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be in high school. So what if you took, Brandy to the prom? Now you're playing with the big boys. So that was something I think, it kind of goes to show how Jordan can change opinion on someone if that person has the talent or potential. And it talks so much on basically how Michael Jordan literally influenced Kobe Bryant and how Like notice one thing I'll say about Kobe when they talked about the turnaround jump shot, that both Jordan used and Kobe have used. He's like, yeah, Jordan told me something about it, but Kobe did not share that information. Josh, why do you think Kobe did not share that information he took from Michael Jordan about that turnaround jump shot?
Man, I wouldn't share that information either if Michael Jordan gave it to me. Honestly, I mean, like you can see like even went into he said he's like, Michael said, reach out and said, hey, if you need anything else, go ahead and call me. I mean, like that's an 18, like you said, a high school kid who should be in high school, and like this is a guy who's just won 2 NBA titles, and he's reaching out to him and in the All-Star game and stuff. So it was really cool to see. It was really touching. Especially since all this stuff is really fresh, and I thought it was very classy by everybody involved and stuff to keep it. I'm sure they had a lot more Kobe Bryant footage. um I know that, I don't know about you guys, I mean, I'll throw it to Nate after I finish this question, but I mean, just watching the beginning part of it, I was like, oh geez, I don't know if I'm going to be able to finish this if there's this much Kobe Bryant stuff in it, because it's still a little bit fresh for me.
Yeah, it's interesting to answer your question, Tom. I personally think it could be for the similar reason. I think the game has changed so much since the time Kobe was originally a rookie. I mean, you're kind of looking at, we've talked about before in the roundtable, how there's kind of a trend towards kind of positionless basketball. Very rarely do you see a two guard on the block with post moves. Now, I definitely think the game could benefit from that. I definitely think someone like a LeBron James, if he adds that consistent turnaround jump shot, could really just elevate his game. But I find this to be a really funny trend through all 6 episodes. It's kind of like, all right, they talk about the good old days and things of that nature, but they also use an episode to go and shit on somebody, you know? So, and I think this week's episode, or at least one of them, was Isaiah Thomas in the Dream Team. Now, Tom, what do you kind of think about that whole dilemma? And you think Jordan still holds on to grudges? Do you think it was justified to block him from the Dream Team, or do you think, hey, Isaiah needed to be on that team?
I think one of the key components that came about because the talk, I've seen a previous documentary on the Dream Team, which I would strongly recommend, and they talked about Rob Thorne selected it, and he kind of looked into it too, and they kind of mentioned the walk off of the Detroit Pistons of how that could have been the reason why Isaiah Thomas wasn't on the Dream Team. How Michael Jordan was kind of like, they go into it in the episode when, I believe Rob Thorne called up Michael Jordan, which is ironic because Rob Thorne drafted Michael Jordan. So he's like, hey, are you going to be playing? And the first thing Jordan asked is like, all right, who else is on the team? And Rob Thorne was like, listen, the guy who you don't want on the team is not on the team. It seems like the decision was already made. What the documentary does, it kind of explains, yeah, Isaiah Thomas was not liked by many of the guys on the Dream Team. It wasn't just Michael Jordan. They mentioned Scottie Pippen, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson. A lot of people had issues with Isaiah Thomas. Ironically enough, the head coach was Chuck Daly. But something that came to light, one of the producers was talking on ESPN today, and guess which member of the Detroit Pistons they were thinking about adding on to the team? Joe Dumars. Now, Josh, do you think Joe Dumars would have been worthy to be on that first Dream Team?
No, he would not have been worthy. I don't know. That's kind of a stretch. That almost seems like another slap in the face to Isaiah Thomas on that one. Like, yeah, we're not going to take you. You might be one of the best point guards going on right now, besides Magic, but we're going to take your other teammate just because, he's a better fit for our team. No, well, I couldn't have seen that. Go ahead, Nate.
Yeah, no. I think he's more of a fit than Christian Laettner was. That's for sure. So
how much playing time did Laettner get?
Yeah, but I mean, still, he was still on probably the greatest basketball roster ever assembled at one point in time. Well, since we're talking about the Dream Team right now, I think another point of emphasis that was made in the documentary was the passing of the torch. that's when Michael Jordan, that infamous scrimmage where they all just threw down in full court, and they wanted to see who really was the alpha of that group. And Jordan took the reins. He literally took it from the rest of the guys. And I thought it was really interesting how there was a brief moment of silence, kind of like, okay, you just got beat up in a fight. Then everyone joked about it later. So I thought it was really refreshing to watch kind of the lack of egos, even though there were big time egos, but they were willing to put that aside to say, hey, this man took it from us. Now, Josh, did you have a point of view about that scrimmage or anything to add?
Yeah, it was neat to watch. Like, I mean, like, I'm just loving all of this insight because I mean, like, I was young when all this was happening, but I'm a big sports fan, so obviously I've been followed it along and then look back after it and stuff. But some of the stuff that's coming out, like that, yeah, like the little thing, like you said, about just the silence on the bus, about how they all just kind of, I mean, it was like a moment of clicking for everybody else, like, oh shit, we are not as good as Michael Jordan. And okay, yeah, like you said, he is the alpha of the alpha, and they said it even in the documentary. So
Okay,
I'm sure Tom has some similar feelings.
I think what they should have done is not aired, the Olympic gold medal game. They should have aired that scrimmage of the Dream Team players in an empty gym. Think about it, no one's around trying to prove they are the best.
Oh man, like that footage. Oh,
yes, that footage, that whole game, I
that.
think, would be absolutely insane with the trash talking going on. And since no one was there, you could hear everything that they were saying to each other. But the interesting thing was, like, Magic Johnson was like, we had the lead, and then I started talking to Michael Jordan. And obviously, I probably shouldn't have done that. So that was kind of something where, the reason why Michael Jordan separated himself from everyone in the league is he knew he was the best player in the league, and every other player in the league knew he was the best. So it was just a matter of time where no matter what you do, when the time comes down, eventually Jordan's going to take over and take the W.
Right. And exactly. Just don't feed that competitive fire in him, because no one's not going to tell him not to do anything. It was just interesting bringing up the Olympic team as well. It shows you Jordan can hold a grudge for years, whether it's Isaiah Thomas. I mean, he even held a grudge against Tony Kukoc that you saw, and Tony did nothing wrong. I mean, he was just a guy Jerry Krause had drafted and was expected to contribute on the Bulls that following season, but him and Scotty just wanted to absolutely just destroy him. I know this was kind of a point of interest for you, Tom. So kind of take us through what exactly was going on.
Basically, Tony Kukoc, he was brought up in Yugoslavia, what later became Croatia, but there was a civil war going on. So a lot of NBA draft scouts saw Tony Kukoc play, but they were concerned he'd get drafted into the military. But the second round pick, Jerry Krause picks Tony Kukoc, and the thing that was going on was Jerry Krause would always loud praise to Tony Kukoc in front of Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan. So here it's kind of the analogy of, like, wait, we're winning you these championships, but you want this guy even more. Like he was calling him the future of the Chicago Bulls, which is kind of like, so that kind of got the chip on the shoulder of Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan. And I felt bad for Tony Kukoc because he was like, I had no idea what was going on. The information wasn't coming back and forth like it is now. And he just had two of the best on-ball defenders that put a bullseye on him, literally, to shut him down in that game. Josh, did you have any sympathy for Tony Kukoc going up against Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen in that game?
Well, like, it's curious that you say that, because going into all of this and this part, kind of what I was hearing was like, oh, Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, they got the target on Tony Kukoc. And I'm just like, well, I'm wondering, I'm like, what? Really? Like, why do they hate this kid so badly? And then you find out about, Jerry Krause and what he's doing. Like, I mean, man, this guy makes some poor decisions. But I mean, after listening to the interviews, like, and him talking, I totally felt bad for him. I had sympathy for him. I was like, this guy's going up again. I mean, it was great that he rebounded and he was able to actually, become such a great member of the Bulls team moving forward and develop good relationships with him. But geez, what a tough way to start for a kid.
Yeah, and it was interesting. It was almost like a gang initiation of sorts, because it was kind of like when he rebounded, that's when Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen were like, okay, this guy isn't some soft European player that just some scrub. This guy can actually play, and he has some resilience. Tom?
Yeah, one thing I'll add on too, I felt like with Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, when you went against them, they would try to totally like they would use the scorched earth policy. They would try to destroy you, your family members, anyone you love. They'd probably steal Halloween candy from your kids if they would need to do that to win. But I think Jordan and Pippen were like, if you helped us win, they would support you, because they did say positive things. They were great teammates. They had great relationships with Tony Kukoc. And they were kind of like, you help us win, great. Dennis Rodman, we hated your guts when you're with the Pistons, but you help us win a championship. So that's all that matters. And since everyone knew on that team who came in with an ego, knew they weren't better than Michael, that helped them out immensely.
Absolutely. And to keep going on with the theme of the Olympic Games, you saw Michael Jordan being brand aware. You saw him with the American flag covering up the Reebok symbol and everything. And that brings us to another point, how basically Jordan lifted Nike into relevance.
I love that part.
Yeah. What was it? They were hoping to sell 3 million pairs of shoes the first season, and they ended up in the 100 millions. It was some ridiculous number like that. One thing I completely forgot, I don't know about you guys, but I forgot Converse was actually like the lead dog in promoting
Yes.
NBA players. And if you remember during the 90s, the only star I can remember with links to Converse was Dennis Rodman.
I was too young for those Converse commercials, I think, because I do not remember those.
Oh, me too. But I think that was great with Bird and Magic and all the guys hovering on those ugly Converse shoes. Yeah, well, Josh, talk about kind of the deal he had in place, because he was leading Adidas. Jordan was.
Yeah, I'm always fascinated with the business part of sports. So just the whole idea with him wanting to go Adidas and being so, I mean, I guess obviously, I mean, he wasn't, well, no, he was outspoken, because those were actual interviews that he was doing for some of them but being so outspoken about going with Adidas, and then his agent just coming in and just being like, no, this is the deal we have to make, and going to an up and starting Nike company and taking, what they were talking about, instead of $100,000, a $250,000 endorsement contract for someone coming right into the NBA, a rookie. So, it was super cool seeing that, and then how they evolved the brand throughout the time using the air technology that they were just developing, and just his game and marketing everything so perfectly.
Yeah, and well, it's interesting. If you had to make the choice, right, back in Jordan's situation, do you go with Nike? I know we have revisionist history as a strength at our hand right now, but what do you do?
I think it was Michael Jordan. He said it, and I think I've read about it too. He wants to go with Adidas. That's what he kind of wore. And I just thought it was hysterical how Michael Jordan's mother made him go to the Nike meeting. Yeah. Like, no, I don't care if you're going to go in there, you're going to sit, you're going to listen to their presentation, and I'm going to be there with you, with your father. And if you get, it's kind of like, the parent dynamic was so much different.
The upbringing.
Yeah, was so much different with Michael Jordan there. Like, now the parent would probably leave the kid at home and try to negotiate for the kid's behalf instead of that. The one thing I was a little surprised was they did not mention the name Sonny Vaccaro. Sonny Vaccaro was the person who recommended that Nike sign Michael Jordan. That's another 30 for 30 you should see. He's kind of a very controversial figure. He kind of helped expand, I guess, college athletics tremendously, to say the least. He would give out free materials to colleges And college is like, great, free stuff. And that sort of just laid the groundwork for grassroots basketball and what we see today, whether it's good or bad or indifferent. So that's kind of one thing that did surprise me. But I did like how he was like, yeah, I'm not showing the Reebok sign. I'm a Nike person through and through. So his competition went to the brands like, wait, I have Nike, you have Reebok, we must crush you. Kind of just that's the way he felt.
Right. And it was also interesting because Jordan actually almost left Nike in 1987 because their lead designer for his original shoes went to Adidas. And so he wanted to leave Nike to go to Adidas, and then his dad talked him out of it. His dad once again talked him out of leaving Nike for Adidas, and we know how that panned out. So if anyone's to blame for the lack of success in the basketball game because Adidas had, it's the parents of Michael Jordan.
Man, the landscape would have been so different had Michael Jordan gone to Adidas over Nike.
Would Oregon still be in the Pac-12?
Yeah, right. But so, I mean, it's funny how all those brand names change over the course of times because, I mean, at one point, I mean, the NFL had Reebok as a main sponsor, and then they changed to Nike, and it's so incestuous, but it's crazy to think about how much the dynamic would have changed had he gone to Adidas in the mid 80s.
Always screams to the thing that I love to talk about. Money.
Absolutely. Well, it was funny. We were talking a little bit in the green room about this, Tom, and this is actually a point of the documentary where I think they were trying to discredit Jordan a little bit here, and they brought up the book, The Jordan Rules. To me, this endeared me to Michael Jordan a little more because of the fact that I think no matter what you can say about Michael Jordan, he was always authentic to his personality. He was always authentic. And you saw the pressures at hand trying to pressure him into taking a political stance that he necessarily didn't feel comfortable with. He didn't feel comfortable or didn't feel strongly about either. And he said, no, I'm not going to go do that. Go shove your hand up someone else's ass and go have them go talk for you. And especially with the climate nowadays in professional sports, you see the powers that be pressuring athletes into taking more polarizing stances. And even more funny, look at the beginning of this NBA season. It all started with the drama happening in China, LeBron refusing not to speak about the Chinese government and essentially saying the same thing. Instead of Republicans buy sneakers, he essentially says, well, the Chinese buy sneakers too. You guys have a take on this, Tom? I know you probably do.
I think, you mentioned it perfectly where, one of the criticisms of Michael Jordan, because he was the icon of icons, he wasn't competing to be the best basketball player of all time. He was competing to be the best athlete in all sports of all time when it comes to marquee status. And he kind of did say something where it's like, well, Republicans buy sneakers too. It might have been a decision move, a business decision. But I think nowadays it's so refreshing. Just someone who's like, listen, I don't want to talk politics. I just want to play sports. And I think that's up to, because here's the thing though, if you're a politician that pisses off Michael Jordan, he probably would show up to every campaign against you and make sure you totally, utterly lose. So you might be better off be like, no what, let's keep it there. But I think he's someone too where, you know what, I'm not going to say my opinion on certain topics. Some people might critique him. He did mention how he did donate money to that senator. I wonder how much that money would have been. It could have been a significant amount, to say the least. But he never was so politically active like Muhammad Ali. Now, Josh, how do you feel about Michael Jordan being neutral on political topics?
I mean, that's always an interesting topic because, how nowadays we're so used to athletes using, and even people, we feel like a Colin Kaepernick using this platform, and then even other, prominent celebrities and stuff like that. It's kind of a different landscape. And I mean, back then there wasn't that many who wanted to do it and, challenge the social norms of the day. I mean, just listening to Senator Jesse Helms talk about some of the things that he was on the thing, it's like, whoa, this is so completely backwards. But realistically, I mean, in those times, those people, well, it wasn't that completely backwards for them. I mean, obviously now looking back at it, we can see that we're like, no, that's ridiculous. But I mean, I don't mind him choosing to, kind of remain, like you said, as a sport, just wanting to play sports on it. He never had, maybe if he had have started off things as a big political activist and came out on different, topics, but he never did that. It was about basketball. It was about his, him and his endorsement contracts and things like that. So I don't really fault him for that.
Yeah, I don't at all. I mean, especially if you're in today's climate, if you're a celebrity, there's a lot of groupthink out there. You're not allowed to color outside of their norms. And so I think it probably would have fell in the same under the same category with Jordan. I don't think if he had a contrarian point of view on something, I don't know if it would have been received very well. But I think it's so interesting because you see a lot of the same parallels today with someone like LeBron James, who is built a brand around being more than an athlete, but when it affects his bottom line, zip.
Well, I think too, it was LeBron was coming out like a social activist, and then just that one little quote that kind of goes like, wait a minute, it kind of brings you a different question about LeBron's character. But, I think too, it's a smart thing too, because people would, will use Colin Kaepernick. There were some people who had probably never bought Nike and stopped watching the NFL because they disagreed with his political views. So that's kind of something to keep in mind going forward, where, some people, if you do take a political stance and it's controversial, the other side is going to speak out against you and stop buying your products and stop watching you on TV.
Yeah, and to go back to your other point, Tom, how refreshing it is, because a lot of people will take that and run with it. I mean, Colin Kaepernick's built a brand on it. I mean, he's made more money not playing football through shoe deals, book deals than he ever would have playing in the NFL. So it is interesting. It almost could have been, had he really wanted to go that direction, it could have been something else. He could have made a racket out of it. But again, Jordan's always competing. He only wanted to be the best athlete.
Athlete at everything, at golf, at cards, at throwing coins at a wall.
Yeah, did you see that dude who looked like an 18th century philosopher? He actually beat him, and he was actually out shit talked to Jordan. He just did the.
I love that. I love the shimmy. I love the shimmy. Or no, he looked back.
That's going to be like one of the lead Halloween costumes in 2020 if this quarantine ever ends.
Right. Do you guys know who Steven Pinker is?
No. Should I?
No. Well, he's a philosopher, and so he looked exactly like an 18th century philosopher. That dude. It was an ultimate Jerry Curl throwback. But anyway, we were talking about the Jordan rules. And a lot of people were speculating about who was the leak, and they automatically pointed their fingers at Horace Grant. What do you think about that? Do you think Horace was the leak, Josh?
Poor Horace. I think, in an organization that size, and okay, we're seeing now how much cameras were around the team and how many people. So who's not leaking? Yeah, I'm sure lots of people heard. I love that quote from Jordan when he hooked that brother up at, his friend up at the ticket, the guy, his teammate, and he's like, oh yeah, they can be right next to God, and he's like, who? God. He's like, yeah, you just got a ticket from him. Like how many times did media people tell that quote or other stuff? Like I'm sure there was tons and tons of leaks.
Yeah. Anyway, Tom, do you have a take on that? Just is
that's something too where it could be from anything. It could be, I believe Sam Smith was the author. He's, a pretty credible sports reporter from Chicago. He mentioned how he was getting death threats. They kind of threw Horace Grant under the bus. But Horace was like, I never did. So that's kind of something too, because remember, Horace Grant kind of had like, he split up. He was the first guy to leave Chicago and he signed with Orlando. So that's something that I wonder how they're going to explore down the line. But it could be anyone. It could be the ball boy. It could have been Tex Winter. It could have been Jerry Reinsdorf for all we know.
Right.
You
Could have been
know?
Barry Krause.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
could have been agents. Yeah, it could have been
Yeah.
so many different people.
But and it's funny because they did bring up Jordan's gambling and things of that nature. And now, and I completely forgot about this. I know you didn't, Tom, because I know I completely forgot the Knicks were up 2-0 against it.
I did about that.
Yeah, that's one of the moments that will live in New York sports infamy. And just to show you the condition of the Knicks now, Knicks fans call that the good old days.
Yeah.
But I really think they did not do justice to the Knicks Bulls rivalry because it was a smash mouth. They talk about the 93 conference finals. The 92 conference semifinals went to 7 games. Guys were beating the snot out of each other. Everyone was getting hurt, hard hitting on both sides. Pat Riley kind of brought that swagger. They didn't mention how they try to be physical with Michael Jordan and the Bulls, and they're probably the closest challenge to him. I don't know if you heard this, but Charles Oakley came out recently and called out Patrick Ewing for not being a good enough player to win the Knicks a championship. So it was kind of, shocking to say the least. But I really think there were the Bulls had a lot of rivalries, even though they were the best team. They had a lot of intense rivalries with the New York Knicks, the Indiana Pacers. So I want, they kind of glossed over some things like, hey, there's no challenge. But no, there were a lot of teams that came very close to taking out the Chicago Bulls. They just couldn't get the job done. But that's something I think that will go down, in infamy in New York sports with Charles Smith. But here's the thing, though. In today's NBA, that's a lot more commonplace than it was back then. How do you feel about that, Josh, about the coverage of the Knicks-Bulls rivalry in the last episodes?
I thought we were talking about the Chicago Bulls. You're almost worse than Van and Nate when it comes to bringing up anything.
CD Lamb.
When it comes to anything, you're like, wait, you know what? Okay, chance. You're like in your notes. You're like, chance to plug in New York sports right now. I love it. No, I mean, like you said, they did have some really tough, difficult matches with New York, but I mean, all things considered, they're kind of picking and choosing what they show. Like they wanted to show the matchup, obviously, with Charles Barkley getting the MVP, and how Michael was kind of a little bit upset about not getting the MVP that year. So I can see where they, kind of would focus more on that. But, I mean, it could go either way, realistically. I mean, it's their documentary. It's Jordan's documentary.
Yeah, right. Well, what I found interesting, to elaborate on your point, Tom, is my guess is the reason why they didn't elaborate more on that, because it was a similar rivalry they had with the Pistons, except the Pistons were much more brutal, or obviously brutal, and they were the ones with the reputation, the ones who had knocked them off before. So I think my guess is they didn't want to kind of repeat more and more of the same. But yeah, those were nasty series. I mean, those were the toughest series that he played. People talk about Jordan's the skill level of Jordan's finals opponents, but the skill level really existed in those Eastern Conference championship games and the co-finals.
I think even the run-ups to the Eastern Conference, some of the teams in the East.
Yeah, I mean, that was really smash mouth. That was really smash mouth basketball. But going back to the competitiveness, if you want to feel bad for somebody, I mean, everyone's probably picking Tony Kukoc, but poor Clyde Drexler. Holy shit. I mean, when Jordan heard the chirping about that Clyde was an equivalent player, he just took that and absolutely embarrassed him in that NBA Finals. And to a point to where that continued into the 92 Dream Team. He kept, I guess, apparently kept needling him to like where other players are like, hey, man, back off Clyde a little bit here. I mean, Now, Todd, do you have a take on that, Tom? Do you feel bad for Clyde Drexler at all, or?
Do I feel bad? It's something when you're a player at Michael Jordan's level, you use anything to motivate you. And that would be one example. It was like, wait a minute, you think this guy's on my level? Because he kind of gave him some respect. And I think Danny Ainge kind of hinted at it too, where it was like, because he said he knew Michael, and he's like, whenever Michael is like giving you respect and saying, oh, he's a great player, da da da, he's really sizing you up. He's really saying that to himself to kind of like motivate himself. You know, how did you feel about how Michael Jordan treated Clyde?
You cut out a bit there, Tom. Did you say my name or Nate's name?
Yeah, I did. My bad.
Okay. Yeah, no, I mean, just watching him dismantle him, something that I'm going to take from this documentary, at least so far, is just the mentality. Like, I mean, everybody talks about the mom mentality, and I guess, I mean, just because I was a little bit younger growing up, but holy, that Michael Jordan mentality, just like taking someone, like you said, he heard a little bit of chirps, Tom, you said it, from the media, and this guy's not on my level. He's not even in my stratosphere. And he would take that and do that in everything that he did, it seemed. And it's just fascinating that he would go out and just the work ethic and that motivation and drive just to want to be better than everybody at every single thing in his life.
Yeah, here's the thing: is like I find it would have been insufferable to be around Michael Jordan in those days. Here's the reason why. I mean, you have a guy who is not only the best basketball player, but the best athlete in any sports, the biggest star amongst the greatest anyone has ever seen in any era. And here he is talking shit just to, it could have been the paper boy, and he would be needling them and just jabbering, talking shit. And then it's kind of like, what are you going to say back to him? I mean, this is the biggest star you have in the world, has more money than you'll ever see in your life, has probably banged more girls at the same time than like most people will ever see in an entire lifetime. I mean, what do you say back to Michael Jordan? And I mean, seriously, take a
No, no, we just did. Me and Tom both just answered with our.
I got one. I got one. I can hit a curveball.
Okay.
Oh, that was a low blow.
But there's probably like only like a select few people who can say that. Like a Major League Baseball player can be like, I can hit a curveball.
Ouch.
And then he'd say back, well, you can't dunk. So.
Yeah, but they used to have those old, during the NBA All-Star games, they would have the other celebrities come on from different sports and do the dunks. And some of those baseball players could throw it down pretty good. I remember seeing Ken Griffey Jr. throw down some nice dunks.
Yeah,
yes.
I mean, I think there's like only a select few, maybe Ken Griffey, maybe a Barry Bonds, but can you imagine like a Tony Gwynn, like doing like a 360 and slamming it down?
Rafael Palmeiro.
Yeah, right.
I think Dave Winfield probably could have thrown down some mean dunks.
Yeah, I mean, there's like a select few that can make like the crossover. But I mean, it's interesting. I think we've covered most of the major stuff. Do you guys have anything else that you want?
The gambling.
What's that?
The gambling.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we should get into that more. That was cool stuff.
That was a big one. And I mean, one thing, I'll just throw this, like they go into the gambling scandal. I remember it was a big thing. They kind of, with that 2-0 lead, the Knicks they kind of felt like, well, Michael Jordan went to Atlantic City the night before and all this stuff. Did he lose? And he did that, and he didn't talk to the media for 2.5 weeks. There are two things that were surprising. One, people need to realize how like Ahmad Rashad was probably like one of the best sportcasters no one really ever talks about. Two, that interview he gave when Michael Jordan was wearing the glasses, like that kind of gave like something is wrong here. You didn't know what, but it was like something is off here. Nate, how did you feel when Michael Jordan was giving the interview with the sunglasses on?
Well, it was interesting to me because you actually can see he was starting to wear down. I mean, he was wearing down from the constant criticism and the chirping about, oh, you're gambling at all hours of the night. I mean, what about the children? I mean, that's when everyone always goes and clutches their pearls. When someone like that has a little bit of a vice. Personally, I don't think it's that big of a deal. But it was funny to see how that actually, I think, was wearing him down a bit. And when people try to play revisionist history and say, well, had he not retired, the Bulls would have won 8 in a row, I think that was an example of maybe of a chink in the armor. Now, Josh, what do you think?
Yeah. I mean, 100%. You could tell, you could see the differences from the first championship to the second championship, where it's all euphoria and excitement and yes, and then the partying and stuff. And then the third one, I mean, like, I remember seeing that photo of him sitting on the ground in the locker room against the wall, with the ball clutched. And like, I remember that photo, and that's one that's going to stick out in my mind for a long time. And that one almost kind of just perfectly describes how exhausted he was throughout all of that. And I think he needed that refresher. I mean, what do you think, Tom?
I totally agree. It kind of does go, and like Ahmad Rashad got a little bit hint of retirement. And they kind of mentioned a point when it was like when they won, there was no joy in it anymore. It was just expected, and he mentioned later on too, when Ahmad Rashad is with them in the car, what was the license plate? Like 2 Trey or something like that in the Range Rover, where it has the 23 on the gate. Wonder who lives there. Anywho, like he's explaining, he's like, Patrick says, he's going to play until someone pulls him off the court, which pretty much happened. Jordan's like, I want to leave on top. He kind of always had the mentality. So that was something, in hindsight that sticks out, where Jordan was like, know what? If I'm not going to be the best anymore, I'm going to walk away. But it's one of those what if scenarios. What if he played? Who would have been able to knock him off?
Wait, I'll go right back to you on this, Tom. The Knicks went to the NBA Finals that following year. So do you think the Knicks knock him off?
With 94, you want to know what it is? I think they've met in the conference semis, and the Knicks won in 7 games without Michael Jordan. So that goes to prove, if you give them Michael Jordan,
they get the game.
Yeah,
they get
they get one game.
Yeah, they get that one more game. So
I agree.
Yeah, well, it is interesting when people do play revisionist history that they almost want to put an asterisk next to Houston's 2 titles.
I think it would have been interesting to see, because never in the NBA Finals did they match up with a dominant center like Hakeem Olajuwon. And that would have been one matchup. Because all right, they invented the hack-a-shack. Hakeem Olajuwon could hit free throws. He's probably one of the best. Look at the Dream Shake. No 7-foot NBA guy. Shaq were just small people. No one had the finesse like Hakeem Olajuwon. So I think that would have been a very interesting series with Hakeem just going up and against Jordan. So I don't know. Who do you think would have won that series in 94? Chicago Bulls with the Michael Jordan, or Hakeem Olajuwon's led Houston Rockets?
Yeah, it's interesting because people forget how good Hakeem Olajuwon was, because you remember what he did to David Robinson in the Western Conference Finals. He absolutely worked him. And then in 95, when they played against Shaquille O'Neal in the Magic, he absolutely abused Shaq. The top centers were here. Hakeem was here, at least at that point. And that was a good solid Rockets team. They in 95, they acquired Clyde Drexler in the middle of the year, so that's how he got his ring. But they had some good players. Or young Robert Horry was contributing, Sam Cassell,
Kenny Smith, Vernon Maxwell.
Yeah. They had some good players. So I think that's what I think was robbed the most. Not necessarily who would win, but I think that would have been a classic series. And maybe Houston could have pulled it off because there were some chinks in the armor in Chicago. What do you think, Josh?
No, because Drexler couldn't cover Michael Jordan, and Hakeem Olajuwon was going to get out and stop the 3, which Michael Jordan had just like added to his repertoire, and you're going to tell me that he wouldn't have gotten better at it in the next 2 seasons if he had continued at it. So, I mean, yeah, I think it would have been an amazing season. And I think NBA fans everywhere got robbed of what we should have had as a final. And then also, too, Tom, what we should have had as an Eastern Conference final with, the series leading up in 93 with the Knicks. And then, even moving on, we would have gotten like 2 or 3 more seasons of that. So, I mean, I think that's where we were robbed. But I don't think that they could have taken the Bulls. I mean, unless Michael Jordan was completely dead. Sorry, Tom,
it's like with me, it's like I can never say like in the 90s that anyone could beat Michael Jordan in a playoff series. I just can't utter those words. Unlike he even took out the Moon Stars on Space Jam. But that's kind of one of the things where it's like it's so hard. And I remember Reggie Miller talking, and he was like, he talked about that 2-year gap where they were like, everyone was like, we knew that was our best chance to win a championship because Michael wasn't playing, but we all knew he was coming back.
What it's like to be a Raptors fan in the East when LeBron left.
Hey, you got your championship right here, and you knocked off the evil empire of the Golden State Warriors. So thank you in advance for that.
And it's looking like we might just be back-to-back champions.
With one trophy.
But I'll take that any day. Come on, Tom. You're telling me that New York wouldn't take that?
Oh, will you take our owner, please?
No, we won't. I think one thing that we can all agree on, and Nate, that was, I mean, they're ramping up the episodes with like, little tidbits and things. And like every episode, it's a little bit more kind of behind the scenes stuff about the gambling and all these like extra little interviews we get. Like I'm excited for the last 4.
Yeah, actually the episode 7 was leaked on YouTube, which
they're all out, but not technically.
Yeah, I'm personally saving it for Sunday. I can't wait. Do you guys have any final points you guys want to bring up?
I'll just say what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to how they covered Jordan's retirement, the passing of his father. If like that's such a unique, like, how does Michael Jordan explain walking away and then coming back? Because I think that's going to be a unique piece. And also, I think this will be what's almost most interesting to me isn't what happens on the court, but what happens right after they win the 6th championship, how they totally deconstruct the team. That's one thing I'm kind of looking forward to.
Right. Go ahead, Josh. Did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I'm one of the things that I'm looking forward to for the next couple episodes is kind of like Tom said, it's just how they evolve, because you can tell that they're leading everything up for almost the end of I don't think we're even going to get to other stuff. I think it's going to kind of end after the 98 season ends. But it's like, it almost seems like they're really ramping things up, and they almost even slowed it down from the trip to Paris. And now it's just going to be like, okay, it's, the final little bit, the last championship and the last dance.
I kind of felt like they focused a lot on the middle of the season, like up to maybe the All-Star break, and then they just blew through everything else. Like once Scotty got back, yep, everything's okay. What, they were maybe 4th or 5th in the Eastern Conference. Then by they start winning games. So yeah, that's not fun.
Yeah, well, and one thing I'm looking forward to is there's going to be a lot of disappointed conspiracy theorists out there with these next couple episodes, particularly bringing up the gambling. I mean, and it's not necessarily a fringe point of view that's being held. I mean, you'll see it quite common amongst NBA fans that they believe Jordan's gambling was led to his father's death.
Yeah, that's something, his gambling is the money is nothing to, Michael Jordan, but to, the common working folk, that's a lot of money to lose in a hand of poker or a game of golf. So that, unfortunately, that conspiracy theory is out there, and you got to wonder, I feel like the topic of Michael Jordan's father's death is something that's very interesting, and you want to see how they cover it and how Michael, reacts to it. Will they just glance over it? I feel like that could be a 2-hour episode just by itself.
Oh yeah, that'd be. Josh, do you have a point of view on that?
What year do you guys know what offhand, like what year did Michael Jordan's dad pass away?
93. His father was
Okay, so it's coming. It's coming up then.
yeah.
I think that, you know what, I honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they, like, they did kind of a short bit like what they did with the gambling and what they did with Kobe Bryant, and kind of moved on and had his mother say something. But I don't think that we're going to get too much into that. But I mean, I could be wrong. I would like to be wrong, because that would make for a fascinating part of this documentary.
Yeah, and I think it's something that a lot of fans, that's the reason why they believe that, is because they think it's kind of swept under the rug a lot of times, and the kind of the mindset of a lot of conspiracy theorists. If something doesn't add up, they're going to make that additional jump to make their point of view, which doesn't necessarily add up. But
Yeah, I know. Like the thing is, two people were arrested for his father's murder, and it's just something that, like, it's odd. It seemed like it was like a random killing, which probably doesn't add up to anything. So that's I can imagine it's going to be a tough subject, and we'll see how they cover it.
You guys can save this for your conspiracy show.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, guys, why don't you go ahead and tell us where we could go ahead and follow you, like I am, on social media. Josh, give yourself a shout out.
Well, they can follow me on social media at Joshua Griffith 0 on Twitter. But most importantly, they can tune into the YouTube channel on Thursday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Sorry, math isn't a good thing for me. I can, talk about sports and everything, but math isn't a good thing. 6 p.m. Eastern time for my live show. We're going to be talking sports. Got some interviews on, so please check it out.
Tune in if you know what's good for you. Tom, where can we follow you?
All right, you can follow me on Twitter at defense_com. Let me try to get it there and try to be, I'm not good at pointing. At defense_com, at DFENDS_com. Great talking with you guys today.
Absolutely. Likewise. Anyways, I know I'm doing a terrible job at advertising with my name right here, but you could follow me at No Remorse Sports. Simple.
Your real name,
guys, what's that?
Your real name's Nathan?
No, it's not Nathaniel.
I'm going to call you Nathan.
I threw you a curveball there.
Oh, yeah, you're done now.
Anyway, thank you for tuning in, guys. Until next week, we'll be here same time. Actually, maybe same time, but we'll definitely be here next Monday. We'll be talking the next 2 episodes. And listen like you play with intensity.